thank you, the previous speaker, Dan. This afternoon we're running the Speakers Forum here, which has been operating in Melbourne for how many years? 40 years or more? 3 weeks ago I was speaking in Sydney, which I've been doing on and off for about 15 years. I've also spoken in Adelaide, but by and far, Melbourne is the best Speakers Forum in the country. I haven't been to Hyde Park in England, so I can't comment on that. So this afternoon I want to speak on a topic which I have put quite a lot of time into, and it's called, Have You Read the Bible? And the reason I picked this topic was because this is Children's Book Week, right? And some years they have a whole lot of caravans and displays set up for Children's Book Week, and I was expecting that. That's why I chose this topic. But it won't go astray because it does fit in a little bit with Vit's talk, who spoke today. And you might ask me, why on earth would I say to you, have you read the Bible? What a stupid question, you know. I mean, why should I have to read the Bible? I mean, you know, I've read lots of books, you might say. Or there again, you might say you don't read books. What's it got to do with my life? Maybe you think, you know, why should I stir your conscience by asking you such a question? Have you read the Bible? And all I can say is that if you refuse to acknowledge the Bible, then you are ignoring or dismissing the most significant event in the history of this world. And that event, of course, is the coming to this planet of Jesus Christ and the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And the Bible is not just another ordinary book. It's not just an old-fashioned book either. In fact, it's far more up-to-date than anything you can Google search. It's far more up-to-date than any magazine or anything else at all, because it not only tells you the history of the establishment of mankind on this earth, it also predicts what's going to happen to you and everybody else who's ever lived on this planet. The Bible has sold more copies than any other book in the history of this world. The Bible has changed more lives than any other book in the history of the world. A few years ago, the American magazine Newsweek went out of print. It ceased to exist. I find it rather interesting that not long before it did cease to exist, it ran a story which made fun of the story of Jesus being born in a stable in Bethlehem. So it's gone. But the Bible, my friends, has not gone out of print. Neither will it ever go out of print. The Bible is here to stay.
At the second coming.
That's fulfilling what the Bible itself predicts. As I said before, the Bible is not just another old-fashioned book. My Bible will tell me what's going to happen at the end of the world. And as I said before, the Bible has changed more lives in the history of the planet. And how can we say that? And why? How has it changed lives? And I know people whose lives have been changed. How can it do that? Anyone like to suggest?
Sorry, what was the question?
How can the Bible change people's lives?
Well, the most immediate response to that would actually be read it and you'll find out. But
that's correct. But the key issue here is the Bible tells us what is right and what is wrong. So how can you change your life unless you admit that there are things in your life are wrong and that you want to put right? So the Bible is essential for that.
So the Bible tells us that we are spiritually sick.
Yeah, that's right.
That's meant in the Christian sense, not in the New Age sense.
And the Bible tells us how to stay out of trouble. The Bible is a manual on health, history, literature and archaeology, and I'm going to illustrate a couple of those points shortly. The Bible describes the beginning of life on earth and man, and it describes man's ultimate destiny. If you refuse to examine the pages of the Bible, then I think that you are somewhat ignorant. You have your head in the sand. Even Richard Dawkins, the great arch-atheist has said that the Bible should be taught in all schools for its literary value, if nothing else, and it certainly has literary value. I have several friends, and I've got one here today. Just a minute. I have several friends. One's here with me today who is an atheist, and some of them are agnostics, such as David Miller and, yes, my friend Andrew. And, you know, these people, some of these atheists actually know the Bible better than a lot of church people. Why? Because they're smart.
But they don't know it better than believers.
Well, but they do know what's in the Bible.
They read it in a context different to the Bible's own.
Yeah, but at least they've read it. At least they've read it, you know? And I think they're smart. Without some knowledge of the Bible, I believe a person is not fully educated.
No, I don't know.
And if you think you're so smart that you've got all the answers to the meaning of life, then I suggest you think again. The Bible not only tells you where you come from, but it tells you where you are going. Because we're all going somewhere.
It tells you where we might be going.
We are all going somewhere.
It gives us the option. It doesn't actually tell us where we are going.
It tells you where you're going because it describes in great detail those who will not be going to what we believe is heaven. It describes in quite a lot of detail those who tell lies, for example, and I find this quite extraordinary, that there are so many people in churches today who think that it's quite all right to keep on telling lies. If you spend your whole life sitting on your backside watching trailer trash reality TV, sending tweets, playing idiotic video games, or talking to all your Facebook friends, getting drunk, taking drugs, and have never even bothered to consult the Bible,
what about chasing
then you have lived your life in ignorance, my friends. Total and utter ignorance. Your Facebook friends cannot and will not tell you what will happen to your soul when you die, and your computer can only give you assumptions and guesstimates. In the Bible, in Psalm 22, it says, "No one can keep alive his own soul." Now, as I've said here many times before, God's church is not confined to the walls of some great building like you see across the road or around Melbourne. We have many, many churches around Melbourne and in other cities. But go inside and you'll find that most of the people inside these churches never even read the Bible. How ridiculous is that? They're going and worshipping God. They don't even know what's in the Bible, which is God's message and word to us. The sad fact is that most churches today have become little more than repositories of elitist groups who only mix with their own church groups and their own family members. Now, I know that sounds pretty harsh, but it is a fact. And now I'm going to demonstrate by archaeology how up-to-date the Bible is on both history and archaeology. Now, the first item is an item I saw on SBS TV, where archaeologists have discovered an ancient pot containing Hebrew text which existed 1,000 years before the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, don't tell me you've never heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls. In this very library, I actually saw an exhibition of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
I did waste quite some time reading them, yes.
Oh, no, they're very important.
No, they're not.
They're very important. And as I said, if you've never heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, I think it's about time you did. The Dead Sea Scrolls are just one of thousands of authenticated artifacts which prove the Bible to be historically true. SBS described this find as groundbreaking because the Hebrew text describes the account of what? David killing Goliath. Oh yeah, we thought that was a fairy tale that we learned at Sunday school or religious instruction. It's not a fairy tale. It's been authenticated by archaeological finds.
Alright, so you're referring to the fact that the Dead Sea Scrolls themselves contained a very early copy of the Old Testament, which is good, yeah, so that is significant.
Very important, yeah.
We'll keep the
But what I've just told you about is only just one of thousands of proofs of the accounts we are given in the Bible. Here is another one.
and we'll
This
keep
one was reported in the UK Daily Mail.
we'll keep the speech. The piano speech.
Scientists have found compelling new evidence supporting the biblical account of what? The Great Flood and Noah's Ark. Oh, but we thought that was just a fairy tale. You know, we learned about this in Sunday school. We also have proof of Noah's Ark in many Babylonian artifacts. These accounts actually back up the Genesis account of the Great Flood in the Bible.
What's another example?
I just need a bit of a break.
It's freezing, isn't it?
Hey?
It's freezing.
Sorry, my voice is... Sorry about that. So you see, I could go on and on and on about archaeology and how it proves the Bible. We have proof of Noah's Ark in many Babylonian artifacts. These accounts back up the Genesis account of the Great Flood, and they even mention Noah sending out a dove,
I think
which we've got around here,
is also
to see whether the waters had subsided. So this is not a fairy tale, my friends. This is fact.
and even
The Bible also talks about the Chaldean people and the city of Ur of the Chaldees. These people worshipped the moon god. One of their temples has been unearthed and a temple kitchen was discovered. There are stone tablets which describe life in the city of Ur. Now this city of Ur of the Chaldees is mentioned in the Bible. And these remains go back 3,800 years. So where am I going with all this? I'm going to make a rather dramatic and bold statement here, which may not surprise many of you who know me. I believe that because we can prove the Bible to be true, then you have no excuse to go on with your life as if it was a fairy tale, nor to say in public or anywhere else, on the internet or anywhere else, that the Bible is a heap of crap, because the Bible is historically true.
She's talking to you and she's saying you've got no excuse to go continue on with your life.
Rosalie, I think an important point here with reading the Bible when read with the Holy Spirit that allows us to realize our true spiritual infirmity and also points to
But
the
that is
future.
you can't say that to these.
The police are coming for you.
Sorry?
The police are coming to get you.
Thank you, Viv. Thanks for making the point, but spiritually speaking, that's a little bit advanced for the people who are listening today. And in fact, as I said at the beginning of my talk this afternoon, because it's Children's Book Week, I was expecting some kids to be around, so I was actually contemplating how I could minimise some of the things I was saying so that children could understand. So we have to be careful who our audience is. We can't talk spiritual
Right.
language when the audience are not Christians.
No.
Also, because we can prove the Bible to be historically and archaeologically true and correct, I believe that you have no excuse to live your life as if the Bible does not exist, and to ignore its warnings about the next life, because they're there and they're happening all around us, signs of the end of this world. They're in the Bible, they're happening as we speak. Or do you want to go to hell in a handbasket? That is your choice, my friends. I have nothing to say about that. That is your entire choice and something that you have chosen. But of course, if you've accepted the Bible as being true, then you could go one step further. And you could believe in God. Because God is what the Bible is all about. So it's not just, a list of historical happenings and we have archaeological findings and We have a lot of talk about the Egyptian people, and we can go and study Egyptology. There's far more to it than that. So you could actually go a step further and you could believe in God. But of course, the Bible itself says the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. The fool. And don't think I'm going to let the church off the hook here this afternoon. I never do. I never let the church off the hook. They have to be scrutinised. You see, God has had a gut full of self-righteous people who think they're on their way to heaven. Nothing has changed since the days of Jesus. Jesus told the church leaders of his day, that was the scribes and Pharisees, he said, woe unto you because you say you have no sin, or you've never done anything wrong. Because you say you have no sin, therefore, Jesus said, your sin remains. I'm nearly finished here this afternoon, and thanks for putting up with the cold. You see, Jesus, despite what a lot of people think, Jesus did not come to this earth to save goody-goody church people. Jesus actually said, I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. And that's who Jesus had time for. He spent a lot of his time with, you know, like the publicans, the tax collectors, even allowed a prostitute to wash his feet and to keep company with him. Jesus said that the tax collectors and pub owners go into heaven ahead of the church leaders. That's what he told the church leaders of his time. And the same applies today. Nothing has changed. But of course, these people will only go to heaven, and we believe in heaven, obviously, some people don't, if they repent and change their lives. I mean, okay, if you're a drunkard and you drink all the time, you've got to start to have some self-control, you know, and stop drinking all the time, or stop taking drugs. I mean, you're only killing yourself anyway. So my conclusion here this afternoon, and thanks for listening and being patient. I'd like to ask you all, what about every person here this afternoon? Every single person. And I ask myself the same question. And I'm going to finish by quoting a song that I've sung many times. I'm actually a singer and a musician. And this is a lovely song I've sung in many churches, and it's called Give Them All. I'm not going to quote it all in its entirety. I'm just going to finish by this. It's called Give Them All. Are you tired of chasing pretty rainbows? Are you tired of spinning round and round? Wrap up all the shattered dreams of your life at the feet of Jesus. Lay them down. Thank you.